If you want to establish your product market fit for a category creating product, make sure that you are concentrated over a small area or very high density users, and spend all your energies and all your efforts to make sure that this set of users, at least 15 to 20% of these users, are using your product. If they're using the product and they're liking it, that means there is a product market.
Welcome to Prime Venture Partners Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs looking to build and grow their startups. Learn about uncommon strategies and common traps from makers and doers of startup ecosystem.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this next episode of the Prime Podcast series. I have with me today Squadron Leader Vijay Arisetty, the co-founder and CEO of MyGate. Vijay is a highly decorated Air Force officer, as a Shaurya chakra winner, and is now co-founder CEO of MyGate. And it's appropriate that we have him this week, which is the week of India's 73rd Independence Day. Vijay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
So let's start with a few words about MyGate. If you could introduce it in just a short intro for our audience, please.
Yeah, so MyGate is basically a platform where we enable seamless entry and exit of all your visitors at the gate. Today, with the influx of e-commerce and various other services being consumed at the doorsteps, it becomes increasingly difficult for the security guards at the gated communities to manage this traffic, and which leads to inconvenience to your visitors as well as inconvenience to the residents who are getting these people in. So we have built this platform in a way to make sure that we do not compromise on the security while enhancing the convenience of all the stakeholders around the gate. So this is all about MyGate.
Wonderful. And so today MyGate operates, I know the company is about 4 years old, you told me. Company operates in how many cities and how many gated communities do you currently serve?
Yeah, so MyGate was started early 2016, and our early product, the first MVP or the first product, our first customer we signed up in the month of October 2016. And from then till now, we have grown to 10,000 communities across all the top 14 cities of the country. And we are guarding close to 2 million homes at this point in time. And pre-COVID, we used to do close to 3 million visitor validations every day.
That's amazing scale. And, obviously, this week, we all tend to remember a lot more. And it's great to have a service officer, in the business of security. But tell me, how did you get the idea? And especially for our audience being entrepreneurs, how did you get the idea? How did you validate it? How did you establish product market fit? What are some experiences you can share?
See, one of the core things that we had, or I had, was we need to solve a problem that is being faced by user multiple times a day. And one of the key things when I came out from the armed forces was my wife was concerned about safety and security. By being at the armed forces in the cantonment areas, all these things were a default setting, and we were never worried about safety and security of ourselves, right? But once we were in the civil street, my wife's biggest concern was, the safety and security. But, I decided to stay in a gated community because, it's supposed to be much more secure than in an individual house. But when we moved into the gated community, we realized that our expectations are far from reality. So that's the time, I was, basically my house was facing the gate of the community, and I used to observe what's happening at the gate of the community. And it was very interesting to see that the traffic at the gate was increasing on a daily basis, but the security guards were following the same old protocol of asking the visitor to type name in the register and then giving a call on the intercom. Sometimes the intercom used to work, sometimes the intercom used to not work. Then finally, the security guard used to tell the visitor to call from his phone, and all those cumbersome protocols, and which used to irritate the visitors who used to come into the gate, right? And and also at my home, the intercom was not serviceable. So every time the visitor used to call from their own phone and hand it over to the security guard, right? And that's how I felt that anybody can call and, hand it over to the security guard, some random person, people can come inside. The system was not foolproof, but at the same time, a lot inconvenient to everybody involved in this process. And that's the time, we thought that, since this problem is faced, like, because basically in India, every household expects 3 to 4 guests to their home, or I'll not say guests, but 3 to 4 visitors, whether it is your, maid, a driver, nanny, or cook, or, some e-commerce delivery executives, or, a cab driver, or, a personal guest, right? So multiple various forms of people, right? At least 3 to 4 visitors come to your home, and people are interacting 3 to 4 times a day with the security gate, and all the interactions are, inconvenient and, not so pleasant. And that's how we said that, okay, how do you make this interaction pleasant, and also at the same time increase the security quotient at the gate, right? So those two problems we wanted to solve, and MyGate was born with the aim of solving these two problems.
Got it. And tell us about the first year, right, which is the most exciting and challenging part of establishing, your credibility with the customers, establishing product market fit, and knowing that this was where you wanted to spend, several years building a large company.
Yeah. So I think the first year was very challenging, right? It's not because there was no product market fit, but more because of, the customer education, right? So, if you see security at the gate, right, today, if you see all the gated communities in India collectively spend close to, $5 billion to make sure that the gates are secure. Despite spending so much of money there, people, feel that this is a very complex problem. And that's the reason we are spending so much of money. When we went through all the problems associated at the gate and built the system in a very, very simple manner, it was very difficult for people to appreciate that how can such a complex problem be solved with a simple solution what MyGate has built. It became very difficult for people to absorb that. So what we did then is we set people, right, we reached out to our friends and relatives who are staying in gated communities other than where we were staying, right? We reached out to them, we met the management committee members multiple times, and we said that please use the product, and we don't charge anything till the time you're satisfied. And what we did for this is we went to a cluster of a road where there are a cluster of 3 communities and hosting close to 3,000 houses. We said that use the product, don't give us anything till the time you are satisfied, and we deployed the product at those places. And all of the founders were actually standing at the gate to make sure that the product is successful. And to our luck, within a month's time, all the 3,000 houses adopted MyGate. And more interestingly, the gated community started seeing the benefits of it, being informed of what is happening at the gate, real time, whether they're present at home or not present at home. The security guards saw a phenomenal jump in the way they used to operate the system, right? Initially, they were always afraid to maintain the registers, and they didn't have clear, transparent ways to access or display what is the work they have done. Today, after all this digitization, they're able to show all those things. So we gave a positive experience to the security guards and as well as the visitors who are transiting through the gate. Right? Once they saw that all the stakeholders were benefiting out of this, that is the time these 3 communities started paying us. And what interestingly happened in this 1 month or 30 days when we are deployed in these communities was more and more visitors from surrounding societies started coming in, right, for some of the other social engagements with their friends who are staying in these communities. Once they saw at the gate the experience, they went back to their own gated communities and said that we have experienced some exciting product at this particular community. Why don't we get that? And that's how we other communities started reaching out, and the product became a little bit viral in that particular area.
Got it. So that's amazing points, because especially the point about you and your co-founders actually going and serving at the gate and really being true users and customers of the product yourself to experience thing, and many times founders hesitate to do that because it's a difficult thing to do. What other lessons from those early days would you share for our audience, entrepreneurs who are establishing product market fit?
So Sanjay, I think for early entrepreneurs, especially for category creating products, right, there is no existing product anywhere in the world, and you're trying to do something on that front. For you to, for the product to become, go beyond the MVP stage, or the product market fit stage, right? It is very important for the founders or the team to, play the role of, making sure that the product is used by people or experienced by people, and then you see whether there is a benefit out of it or not. So, for example, what we did is, by standing at the gate, we made sure that people are using the product. Once people use the product, the benefits become very visible. Otherwise, category creating products, you do any kind of marketing or anything else, it generally, what I feel is it will not work till the time people experience the product, right? Because, what will you advertise? What will you market? Yeah. There is no basis on which you can, do any kind of communication.
Got it. Any other insights?
And second is, we have to be very focused in what you're doing, right? If you, again, category creating products, if you try to carpet bomb across multiple areas, it will, it'll only, suck up your bandwidth and not give the kind of results that you want, right? If you want to establish your product market fit for a category creating product, make sure that, you are concentrated over a small area or very high density users, and spend all your energies and all your efforts to make sure that this set of users, at least 15 to 20% of these users are using your product. If they're using the product and they're liking it, that means there is a product market fit, right? And then you can figure out what are the ways you need to do to, spread or distribute this product. But initially, while establishing the product market fit, do not try to spread your efforts across multiple geographies and multiple users. Figure out the cohort that you want to, experiment with or try your product with, and do a focused exercise to make sure that that cohort is happy, and take feedback and then distribute the product.
That's great. So switching gears a little bit, you talked about 3 million transactions a day. You talked about, 10,000 communities, 2.5 million households that you're securing with all the entry exits that are happening. So the obvious question that comes up is, what are you doing with the data, and how safe is my data? Since MyGate has access to a lot of my personal and fairly sensitive information. Tell us about the strategy with respect to data security and privacy and all the things you all are thinking about and doing.
Yeah, for us, right, all three of us in the entire team understands the sensitivity around the amount of or the kind of data that is being processed by MyGate, right? And it becomes our responsibility to make sure that this data is not exploited or misused by any one of us, right? So one is intent is very clear, and the process and the way we interview people, we figure out, how people are sensitive with respect to the data. That is one. Second is intent alone is not enough. We have to display the qualities of, data privacy and data protection, right? So we actually, what we did is we invested a lot of, last, close to 18 months to study what all can be done with respect to, data security and data privacy. And we figured out that we need to get ourselves ISO 27001 certified. So we engaged consultants who can advise us, study our infrastructure, both physical infrastructure and tech infrastructure, and suggest us areas or gaps where we are supposed to fill up. We have engaged them and identified few places and filled in all the gaps. And as of today, we are ISO 27001 certified, basically to ensure that the data is safe with us. The second thing is data privacy. For us to make sure that we are ensuring the highest standards for data privacy, we again have engaged consultants to suggest us to have our infrastructure GDPR ready. GDPR today is the gold standard of data privacy, right? And while we have become GDPR ready by doing all the changes suggested, we also studied the Justice Sri Krishna Committee report on Indian data privacy protection, and we have encompassed all the suggestions given in that report, and we built our product, or we have put adequate framework around MyGate data so that nobody gets access to this information. And if so, anybody is accessing that information for legitimate reason as prescribed in the contract, the end users whose data is being investigated gets to know that their data is being investigated, and if they're not happy with the reason given, they can reach out one-on-one with the person who is accessing their data so that they can get adequate answers, right? So this is not only to, set our systems and infrastructure to, make sure that we protect the data and the data privacy is also ensured. This is more importantly to get the DNA into the company. Having these structures and process and frameworks and everybody day in and day out working with this kind of framework, it actually gets each and every person becomes responsible for the kind of data that we are handling. And even the thought of, accessing this data or doing something about this data is not at all existing. So that's how we have structured the whole company.
So, and the reason I brought this up as a specific point is both about MyGate itself, but also I think most businesses now see themselves as data businesses. And, I think the effort of implementing these processes and the compliances is quite significant. And what you're saying is once you get it into the fabric of the company and it's non-negotiable, then actually the overhead isn't that much on an ongoing basis, right? So it's like a one-time thing, best done on day zero. But even if you do it soon after, as long as you do it early enough, ingrain it in the culture of the organization and the product feature set at the platform level, then the overhead is very minimal.
Correct.
So what you're saying also there is, best done early.
Most things. It involves multiple things, Sanjay. One is, as I said, the certifications, your tech architecture, your tech framework, your processes, and your training for the people who are coming into the organization. There are multiple things that needs to be done to make sure that thing of the DNA or the fabric of data privacy and security is there in all individuals.
Great. We'll just spend a couple more thoughts on I would like to hear what you can share with us about the next phase for MyGate, and then I do want to talk a little bit about your life in the armed forces as well. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what's in store for MyGate users and customers.
MyGate in general, right? What we are doing is we're solving the problem at the gate. What pre-COVID, what we were doing is we're making sure that the right people are getting access into the community. With the COVID, what happened is actually things at the ground changed with respect to there are more checks that are happening at the gate. Earlier, people only wanted to get the right people in, but right now they also wanted to get the right and healthy people in, right? They don't want to interact with, if anybody has even remote chances of having COVID, right? So I think the process at the gate has changed now. We had to get adapted to this process, the new process that has come out because of COVID, right? Gates have become more like, as of today, the transactions used to happen through the gate. Now the transactions are happening at the gate. People are we have built a lot of systems around how can we make this process simple at the gate, right? Including the validation and also the health checks or COVID protect checks at the gate, right? So I think these changes we are adapting to. Second is on a long-term basis, for us, right, we want to make the process at the gate very, very seamless. As of today, I think we have just scratched the surface in terms of building a platform, right, and solving the most, nuanced use cases in terms of getting people validated and making sure that they're going out at the right time. But there are multiple other things that we need to do. Like say, for example, how can we make the process of, the delivery executive, right, talk to the systems of the e-commerce company in a way that we get we get the complete information of about who's the delivery executive who's coming to deliver something at the gate. How can we do a backward integration with the e-commerce company and make sure that the right delivery executive, in fact, who is background verified by the e-commerce company, is actually coming to do the delivery and not any other person impersonated as a delivery executive that is in fact hired by the e-commerce company, right? So that is one thing which we are doing. Second, what we are doing is we are if you see the ecosystem of the security guard, the attrition rate is so high that every 3 months you see all the security guards changing, right? Now, how do you make the product adaptable to this changing ecosystem of security guards? You need to make it so simple that the complex problem at the gate is solved much more seamlessly by the security guard, right? So we are investing a lot in terms of how do you make it so brain dead that anybody standing at the gate, whether experienced or inexperienced, would be able to do what is expected out of him. Third, what we are doing is we are building more and more intelligent systems in a way that we would be able to reduce the skill level of the security guard to perform the job at the gate, right? All those integrations and multiple other things, right? And we are also seeing, right, how do you there are a lot of gated communities, right? Every gated community is different and they've got their own set of rules. We are investing a lot in terms of how can communities set up their own rules, how the system can be how the system can adapt to multiple rules of each and every gated community. They can set their own rules, and the security guard or the system will perform as per the rules set by the gated community, right? So we are going to go much more deeper into what's happening at the gate and try to make it much more effortless for the security guard and the ecosystem to experience the product.
No, it's terrific to hear about the sort of obsession you all have with solving the problem for that very specific customer and thereby making life easier for everybody in the ecosystem there. So let's switching gears, Vijay, given that this is also the week of Independence Day, India's 73rd Independence Day, I have the privilege here of talking to somebody who guarded the nation. I would love to hear if you could share for our audience a little bit about how you got into the Air Force, what was your life there, what were some of the highlights, and specifically about your experience with the tsunami of 2004 and and leading up to your Shaurya chakra. Do share some of those experiences with us.
I think the motivation for me to join armed forces was the place where I was brought up. So my father was working for Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and there are a lot of pilots used to come to that place to interact with the officials at HAL. I was fascinated by the kind of, they all used to come in a chopper and go out in a chopper, and their uniform, very smartly dressed officers. And Air Force was one of the key customer of HAL. The Air Force pilots used to get a very royal treatment when they used to come to my place. And I said that, if there is something I need to, when I become big, I need to do is I should become a pilot so that I can also get this kind of royal treatment. This actually motivated me to prepare myself for NDA. And, I was fortunate enough to, make it through NDA, and had 3 years.
National Defense Academy,
yes,
right?
National Defense Academy. Had done my 3 years of training there, and then got into the Air Force. Got trained as a helicopter pilot and then commissioned into the Air Force in 1999 and served in the Air Force for close to 10 years. While in the Air Force, I've done some interesting stuff. Was, initial days, I was posted in a unit which was primarily focused on, disaster relief operations, participated in multiple disaster relief operations across Gujarat, earthquake relief or flood relief in Orissa, Bihar, and multiple such, disaster relief operations. And then I got, posted to Andaman Nicobar Islands, right, where it was a strategic airbase for Air Force, far off from the mainland. And there was a small island called Car Nicobar with 4 helicopters there. Basically, the job was to, maritime reconnaissance. And we was guarding our borders with respect to seeing that there was nobody coming into our Indian territorial waters. And that was the key role. And while I was there in 2004, tsunami of December 2004 tsunami happened, and I quickly ran towards the airfield when this whole thing of the tsunami happened. And intent was, I knew that every day when I'm going to office, it was an uphill. And when I saw the waves coming towards the shore, I just said that, okay, let me run towards my office, which is an uphill this thing, and the waves will not touch me. I started running towards the office, which is the airfield. While I reached the airfield, one of the technician told that, sir, there is an aircraft ready. Do you want to start the aircraft? And then I was actually, since it was early morning, 5 o'clock, I was only in my boxer shorts and nothing, a vest and a boxer shorts. And I said that technically I'm not supposed to fly because I don't have the flying suit on me. I can't fly, right? But the fear of the tsunami hitting where I was so high that I said, okay, let me start the helicopter. Right, this helicopter is a basically medium lift helicopter which can carry close to 25 passengers. It generally takes 20 minutes for me to start the helicopter, right, as per the SOP. But that day the fear was so high that I started the helicopter in less than 2 minutes. Immediately I got airborne, And when I got airborne, I saw that the first wave was already hit the island, and it's also receded. Once it receded, it is almost like shaving, right? It has completely polished off in the entire area where the wave has hit. In the terms like all the trees, all the buildings were all washed up. And then when the wave receded, I just came back. I landed back, and by then all the people around the airfield started running towards the airfield, and all of them came to the close to the chopper. I came down and I told people that don't worry, the wave which has come has receded, nothing to worry. While I was telling them this, the second wave hit the island, and the second wave was much bigger than the first wave. It's like if you see, there are oil tankers where, when I say oil tankers, these are places where the diesel or the petrol used to come in big, ships, and it used to be offloaded in these oil tankers. These are big, tanks which can host, I think close to, I don't know what is the capacity of those also, huge ones, which are almost the size of 3-story building, and width probably will be around 30 meters or so, right? That particular tanker flipped from one side of the runway to the other side because of the second wave. And while I was telling people not to worry, and this thing happened, people were really scared of what's going on. I again got airborne, and that is the time I saw a lot of people on treetops, building tops, and some of the people also in the waves, right? And that is the time me and my co-pilot decided to winch up people. And we flew for continuously 3.5 hours to the full endurance of the helicopter, and winched up from treetops, rooftops, and the waves around 250 people, and got them to the elevated place on the island so that all of them were safe. And once all these rescue relief efforts happened, we evacuated close to 40,000 people from the island. Right, the whole island, which was covered by, or the airfield which was covered by debris, we have organized efforts to clear the debris, made sure that fixed-wing IL-76 could land, and then in a period of 1 week, we evacuated close to 40,000 people. And this was the reason, Dr. Abdul Kalam, that time, who was the president of India, he invited us to Rashtrapati Bhavan just to understand, because we are the only people who have seen, this whole tsunami from air and, first-hand experience. He just wanted to understand what happened that day. And, we had gone there, explained him the whole thing. And that's how, he was so impressed with our, work we have done and the valor that we have displayed. And because of which he announced Shaurya Chakra for me and Kirti Chakra for who was the captain of the aircraft then. So I think this was the, incident because of which I was awarded the Shaurya Chakra.
Superb. It's certainly fascinating. And you also mentioned that during your time in the Air Force, you also, piloted Dr. Kalam and several other VVIPs. Vijay, I think as some parting thoughts, your experiences from the Air Force and the armed forces in general, right, certainly help in a business like MyGate. There is adversity that you get to experience, which founders also tend to experience in different ways. Share some closing thoughts for founders, especially given that this is the 73rd Independence Day coming up, and we're at the moment right now facing recovering from COVID. Hopefully, actually, it's still sort of going through that. It's a lot of adversity in general. And what are some of the tips and techniques and tools that you were equipped with in the armed forces that you think would translate for entrepreneurs to share adversity or to deal with adversity?
Yeah, I'll be more than armed forces. I'll be a little bit more specific with respect to a helicopter pilot, right? Because that was the core thing I used to do. Right, as a helicopter pilot, right? Flying the aircraft at that moment was 10% of our task, right? 90% of the time we used to think about, if there is an emergency, what I need to do, because we were flying an aircraft which is very expensive. There are close to 20 passengers in the helicopter. At any point in time, we need to be sure that if anything happens, I take the right kind of actions so that I don't put the machine and the people under risk. So flying used to be 10% of my effort, just like, with the collective and stick, just to fly the aircraft was 10% of my effort. 90% was thinking through any eventualities that I need to react for. I actually tell the same lessons to the entrepreneurs as well, right? Establishing your minimum viable product and product market fit is, you'll experience that in the journey of an entrepreneur. That is the easiest thing that we can do. Things will become difficult day after day. When you see that, your product market fit is established and people are really loving your product, actually the true game starts after that. Building an organization, thinking long term and building the organization with the right kind of people, the right kind of culture, and thinking 4 years, 5 years ahead of time in terms of how the product is likely to behave, what are the tech interventions or the product interventions, the marketing interventions that you need to do at the moment so that that particular day you will not face any problem. Second is, what is the kind of culture you need to develop within the company so that you don't face problems when you have lots of people across multiple geographies, many of whom you will not even meet, right? So these all becomes important, right? And most of the times, all of us think that, okay, we will, solve for this as and when the problem appears, right? The more you delay this, the opportunity cost is going to be much, much higher, right? When I say the opportunity cost of, you experiencing the problem and then trying to solution the problem is going to consume a lot of time, and especially a startup which is in growth phase or which is supposed to be in the growth phase, you need to worry about how do you ensure the growth of the company and not about solving the problems which is causing their dissolution. So I would say that always think ahead of time and start building systems, process, culture, people, process, product, thinking about 4 to 5 years in advance, right? I think this would be my, advice to, startup founders.
No, it's very difficult though for founders who are, thinking about survival to be thinking also 4 to 5 years ahead. And those who do that really pull it off. And I think there's also the fable story of, Jeff Bezos as well, right? Who spends most of his time. And I think the first 3 hours of the day really focused on what's important for Amazon, 6 to 10 years out. So it's great that you're able to do that. And, Vijay, thank you so much for your time. Wish you and everyone in India here a very happy 73rd Independence Day. And on behalf of all of us, I salute you and all those serving the nation today and defending us. And look forward to chatting with you in person soon. Take care.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app for free, and you'll be the first one to know when new episodes are available. Just search for Prime Venture Partners Podcast in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, or however you get your podcasts. Then hit subscribe. And if you have enjoyed the show, we would be really grateful if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast. To read the full transcript, find the link in the show notes.